My name is Lael. I was the daughter of a top Saudi minister, and I was raised to obey. I remember the scent of rosewater in our home, the soft hum of Arabic prayers in the background, the gold-trimmed Quran that sat on my father's desk like a throne. He was a man of power, of influence, of faith, and I was his obedient daughter. I was educated in the best schools, dressed in the finest clothes, taught to memorize surahs before I could read English. My life was perfect. At least, that's what I was told. I had everything a girl could want: a respected father, a beautiful home, a future full of honor. But I had no freedom. My father ruled our household like a kingdom. Every decision made for me, every step I took under his authority. He taught me that a woman's purpose was to serve her husband, to submit to her father, to never question the word of Allah. And I believed him. I believed him when he said Islam was the only true religion. I believed him when he told me to fear the West. I believed him when he said questioning was the first step to kufr. I believed him until I found Jesus. Until I realized that the golden cage I lived in was still a cage. But before that, let me take you back to the life I once thought was blessed. I was 17 when I first heard the adhan from my balcony. The call echoed through the city like a command. I knelt beside my mother and whispered the morning prayer. I wore hijab without question, fasted Ramadan without complaint, prayed 5 times a day with devotion. I was the perfect daughter, the perfect Muslim girl. And I believed that if I obeyed Allah, He would protect me. But He didn't. Because the day I found Jesus was the day my father decided I was no longer his daughter. I didn't know why I did it. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the silence inside me that grew louder every day. One night, after my family had gone to sleep, I opened my laptop, cleared my browsing history, and typed the words I had been warned never to search. Who was Jesus? The screen lit up with results, articles, videos, testimonies. I clicked on one titled, A Muslim Woman's Journey to Jesus. At first, I almost closed it. My heart pounded. Was I committing shirk? Would Allah strike me down for watching this? But I couldn't look away. She spoke softly, but with conviction. She talked about how she had grown up just like me, praying 5 times a day, fasting Ramadan, believing that Islam was the only way to heaven. Then came the contradictions, the control, the fear. And then, she found Jesus not through a preacher, not through a church, but through a dream. She said He stood before her, holding out His hands. No anger, no judgment, just love. She cried as she told her story. And so did I that night. I watched more videos, testimonies from other Muslim women who had left Islam, who had found peace in Christ, who had been healed by His love. And slowly, something inside me began to shift. I felt it like the first ray of sunlight after a long, dark night. For the first time in my life, I thought maybe God wasn't like the men I feared. Maybe He wasn't silent. Maybe He didn't abandon me. Maybe He still loved me. And maybe, just maybe, He wanted to heal me. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I downloaded a Bible app. Hid it behind a game icon. And at night, when everyone was asleep, I opened it. Just to read. Just to see. And what I found changed everything. I don't know when it started, to whether it was during the day or deep into the night, but I remember the dream like it was real. I was standing in a field of white flowers. The sky was soft, golden, not too bright, but full of light. There was no fear, no pain, just stillness, peace. And then I saw Him. He stood a few feet away from me, smiling gently. His eyes, they weren't judging. They weren't cold or indifferent like the faces of my father's advisors. They were warm, full of love. I didn't know who He was at first, but something inside me recognized Him, like a part of me had always known Him, even if I had never truly met Him before. He stepped closer. His hands were open, not holding anything, just reaching out. And He said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." The words hit me like a wave. I dropped to my knees, because I was weary. I was burdened. By fear. By silence. By a father who owned my soul. And yet, this man, this stranger in my dream, looked at me with nothing but love. I wanted to ask Him who He was, to beg Him to take me with Him, to stay in that place forever. But then I woke up. It was still dark. The house was quiet. My father's guards patrolled outside. My mother slept down the hall. I sat up slowly, heart pounding. My cheeks were wet with tears. I hadn't even realized I was crying. That dream, it felt too real to ignore. Too peaceful to be a lie. So the next night, I opened the Bible app again, this time, not just out of curiosity, but because I needed to know more about this man who had come to me in my sleep. I searched the verse he had spoken. Matthew 11:28. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. I read it again and again. Each word felt like a balm to my soul. Who was this Jesus? Why did he speak like he knew me? Why did he offer rest instead of rules? I kept reading, night after night, verse by verse, story by story. I read how he healed the blind, how he forgave sinners, how he welcomed the broken and the lost. And I realized something terrifying. I was starting to fall in love with him. Not the way we love people in our lives with conditions and fear, but the way a child runs into their father's arms, blindly, trustingly, fully. I knew what this meant. If I followed him, if I truly believed, I would no longer be a Muslim. And that thought scared me more than anything, because leaving Islam wasn't just leaving a religion. It was leaving my family. My culture, my entire identity. But as I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, I whispered a prayer I never thought I'd say. Jesus, if you're real, show me the truth. And he did, more than I ever expected. I started writing letters. Not to my friends, not to my family, but to a Christian woman I met online. She had once been a Muslim. Now she was free. I told her about my father, about the pressure, about the fear. She wrote back every time. She never judged me, never rushed me, just prayed. And slowly, she helped me understand. She sent me verses. John 3:16, John 15:9-11, Luke 4:18. She told me, Jesus doesn't demand your obedience. He gives you freedom. I read more, wrote more, talked to her like she was my sister, and I began to feel something I had never felt before. Peace. Not the kind we say in prayers, not the kind we pretend to feel after fasting, but real peace, the kind that comes from knowing you're loved, even if you're afraid, even if you're still hiding, even if you're not ready to leave yet. I kept reading, I kept writing, I kept praying, but not to Allah anymore. I prayed to Jesus. And for the first time, I felt like he was listening. They found out faster than I expected. My brother came into my room one evening. I had left my laptop open, the Bible app on the screen. He stared at it, then at me. What is this? He whispered. I reached for the laptop. Just a sermon app. He read the title aloud. John 3:16. His face twisted in disgust. You've fallen into kufr, he said. I shook my head. I wanted to understand. He ran out. Within hours, my father summoned me. I walked into the family room. 10 men sat in judgment. My mother stood in the corner. My brother watched me like I had betrayed him. My father looked at me. Have you abandoned Islam? I didn't answer. He leaned forward. Tell me the truth. I swallowed hard. I found something else. Silence. Then he stood, walked around me. You are no longer my daughter. My mother wept. My sisters wouldn't look at me. My brother spat on the ground before leaving. That night, I was beaten. Not badly, but enough to remind me what happens to APOSTATS. The next morning, I packed what little I could carry. My Bible, my letters, a photo of my younger brother, and I disappeared. With the help of a Christian underground network, I fled Saudi Arabia, under darkness, in fear, in faith. When I finally stepped into safety, I fell to my knees and cried, not because I had escaped danger, but because I had found hope, and it was worth every cost. They brought me before a private court. Not in public. Not in a mosque, but in our home. In secret. My father sat at the head of the table. His face was cold, final. He looked at me like I was already dead. Do you still claim to follow Jesus? He asked. I looked at my mother, at my younger brother, at the man I once called father. Yes. I whispered. The room erupted. Men shouted. Women wept. Someone spat on the ground. My father stood. You have brought shame on this family. I didn't flinch. I found the truth. He stepped closer. You have committed treason. I met his eyes. No, I found love. He raised his hand. Two guards stepped forward. They took me away. Was dragged into a hidden room. No one would hear me scream. No one would come for me. And I knew what would happen. They would silence me permanently. But I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I didn't plead. Instead, I whispered, Jesus, take me home. And he did. They took me to a quiet place. No cameras. No witnesses. Only my father's closest advisors. They held me down, beat me. Tore at my body. But even through the pain, I didn't cry out. Because I had already made my choice. I whispered scripture, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. One of the men hesitated. Another spat on me. And then they left me there. Cold. Broken. Dying. I didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at the ceiling. And I remembered the dream. Jesus standing beside me, smiling gently, saying, come to me. And I did. With my last breath, I whispered his name. And I woke up in light. After she was taken, I didn't know what to do. I was her brother, her closest friend, and I had helped silence her. I tried to forget. To move on. To pretend it never happened. But I couldn't, because I found her Bible, her hidden letters, her notes, her prayers. I read them in secret, late at night. With trembling hands. John 14:6. I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. John 8:36. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. Luke 4:18. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted. I broke down, because I realized something terrifying. The same Jesus who changed her heart was changing mine, and I couldn't stop it. So I did what she had done. I searched. I prayed, I watched sermons, read the Bible, and slowly, I became the same traitor she was. I fled Saudi Arabia under cover of darkness. I didn't look back. I left behind my father. My title. My past. And I stepped into freedom. For the first time in my life, I breathed freely. I was taken in by a small church community abroad. They didn't ask many questions, just gave me food, water, a place to sleep. And most importantly, love. Not the kind that demands loyalty, not the kind that hides behind tradition, but the kind that says, you are welcome here, as you are. I cried in their arms. Not for myself. But for the years I had wasted chasing a God who never loved me. Here, no one judged me for my past. No one threatened me for questioning. No one cared what I had done, only that I was alive. And I realized something powerful. This was the first time in my life I had ever felt safe. Not because I was protected, but because I was accepted. And that acceptance came from a cross. From a man named Jesus, who died for me long before I even knew I needed him. So I stood in a river. Baptism day. People cheered, hugged me, called me brother. And as I rose from the water, I wept, because I knew I was no longer trapped in fear. No longer bound by silence. No longer a prisoner of a religion that gave me rules instead of love. I was a son of God. And I would never be afraid again. Now, I minister to others like me. Muslims raised in fear, taught to obey. To submit. To distrust. And still searching for something real. I tell them my story. About my sister. About her dream. About the man who gave her peace when no one else would. I tell them how she was silenced, how she was beaten. How she died for the truth she found, and how her final words still echo in my heart. Jesus, take me home, because I know where she is now. Not buried in Saudi soil. Not forgotten. Not silenced, but alive. Free. With him. And I carry her story forward. I speak at churches, online, in secret, wherever I can reach someone still trapped. And I tell them, there is another way, a better way, the way of Jesus. And if you're watching this, if you're reading these words, and you're still inside that world, still being controlled, still being silenced, still wondering if anyone will fight for you, hear me, you are not alone. Your doubts are not sins. Your questions are not blasphemy. And Jesus, he's already reaching for you. Come to him. just as you are. Broken, afraid, tired, and He will give you rest.